We are alive. Hey
Hey
everyone.
everyone.
So nice to be here with you.
Yeah, we're just gonna give folks a few moments to tune in before we get going. But great to know that we got folks from all over the world. And even though you might not be able to see each other, just see if you can start to feel each other's presence. And we have about 15,000 people signed up for this challenge. So quite a few that are tuning in with you.
Mhm. And just in these last couple of moments where everybody's kind of arriving and settling in, if if you know anyone who you think might benefit from learning a little about resilience, about mindfulness, you can also just hit the share button that's just above this video and invite them to come on in and share this time with us too.
Yeah. Hmm, cool. So we'll give it about 30 more seconds. The one other thing that if you are on this page right now, this is going to be the beginning of our 7-day challenge together. So you'll see below, it will say download the mindfulness.com app. This will be necessary to be able to access the videos and the meditations, and totally free. So there's an opportunity to do that, or just know that it's there for at the end. All right, everyone. So I think it's time for us to get going. It's exciting. If you can't tell by our smiles and enthusiasm, there's been yeah, a lot of planning that has gone into this. A lot of people working behind the scenes to make this happen. And
Big shout out to those people too.
yeah, everyone at mindfulness.com. It really is, you see us maybe on the app if you're already part of the app, but there are so many people that work tirelessly to facilitate something where Melli and I get to show up and teach and share our hearts. And just know that there are a lot of hearts that really care, genuinely care about you and our world. And that's really where this event has blossomed from. um, and it's the beginning of a 7-day meditation challenge where each day you'll be receiving a short video teaching. It's about 3 to 4 minutes long with a new topic and practice, and then a guided meditation that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. And so it's designed to offer you really practical tools around the theme of cultivating resilience in hard times, which feels especially poignant right now. Um, and so along those lines, we just want to start by saying, however you're doing right now, however you're feeling, um, is welcomed here. And it's not only welcome, but it's the place we want to meet you. It's the platform for the work that we're doing together to start to meet honestly our moment to moment experience without this constant extra layer of tension and suffering that we often add to our experience by fighting what is there. Maybe you've noticed that before. There are times where you're feeling sad, and maybe you hear the cultural narrative as, I'm supposed to be happy or positive or optimistic. And there's a time and place for all of that, but there's a different kind of ease that we can start to access and drop into by just meeting ourselves honestly in our true experience and all of the goodness and all of the messiness. um, and so maybe just take a moment to settle into wherever you are right now as we begin moving into this experience together. um, Being human has so many wonderful joys and excitements, and love. And it can also be really difficult and really messy and confusing and painful. And there's a lot going on in our world right now. We're all going through this global pandemic together. And so it's quite possible that there are some difficult experiences arising for you, some pain, some suffering, some hardship, and some uncertainty. And one of the things that Melly and I are sensitive to is just that everyone has a different journey. People are walking through this world differently with different life stressors that maybe we don't know, we couldn't know. Personally, as an able-bodied, cis, straight, white man, there are certain stressors in the world that I just won't experience as a part of being in this body. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have suffering, there's not going to be stress, there's not going to be hardship. Um, but there are certain experiences I just can't understand. For instance, what it would mean to be a Black trans woman might be a very different experience than for me. And so we want to acknowledge that we couldn't possibly claim to know what it's like to be you and what you're going through. We have our own journeys that we're navigating, and you're going to have your journey. And we don't take the perspective for a moment that whatever stress you're going through, that you just need to breathe through it and everything's going to be okay. We're kind of repulsed by that because it's complex, and getting through this life requires both an internal navigation and also an external commitment, building communities and a world that is making spaces that are safer, more equitable, more just for more humans. And that is a very important part of creating the platform for goodness, healing, and happiness for others. And at the same time, there's a lot that we can do within ourselves. There's a lot that we can activate within ourselves. And while we might not know what your journey is, we all as humans have thoughts, we all have emotions, we all have sensations. And the way those things interact might be different from person to person, and what triggers those things might be different from person to person. But that is one area that we can connect on. And we also have this ability to observe what's going on and work with our relationship to our internal experience. And that's really what we're going to be exploring here in this 7-day challenge. How to attune yourself to the pulse of your own life, to your own inner experience, and activate the inner resources that you already have to work more skillfully with the complexity that comes with being human. So we're here for you along this journey, and we're going to be sharing some of our insights, how we've done that in our teachings, and what we think might be useful for you in very practical, relatable, and hopefully like immediately integratable ways in your life. And it's coming from a great place of humility and a commitment to you recognizing and activating those inner resources for yourself. So Melli will help us settle in as we continue to build this out together.
Thanks, Cory. Yeah, and again, a really warm welcome to everybody that's here. I'm so honored and glad to be here with you all. And one of the most foundational skills that we need to cultivate resilience in times like these is simply to be able to ground our awareness in the present moment. So I'm just going to invite us to actually do that right now. So if you haven't already found a kind of a comfortable place to sit, I'm just going to invite you to do that now, and just finding a way of sitting that's comfortable for you to maintain for the next just couple of minutes. And if it feels comfortable for you, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and just begin to gather your awareness to your breathing. And then taking a long, slow, deep breath in. And a steady breath out. And as you breathe out, just seeing if it's possible to soften any tension or tightness that might be held in the body, even if it softens just a little bit. And then gathering your awareness and taking it all the way down into the soles of your feet. Your feet might be against the ground or they may not be. But either way, just tuning in to the soles of the feet and all the sensations arising here right now in this moment. And just really having a sense of just arriving and grounding your awareness right here in those sensations and just letting everything else go for a while. And then taking the focus to all the different sounds around you. Really attuning yourself to the soundscape of this moment. And then bringing awareness back into the body, back into the breath and down into the belly. And just for a couple of moments here, just resting awareness on the rising sensation of the belly with each inhale and the falling sensation of the belly with each exhale. And I'm just going to invite you to now take your mind back to the moment when you decided to do this challenge, the moment when you hit the button or said yes to a friend, and just tuning into what it was that made you decide to come here, to make the time. What was the motivation? So just pondering the question, what is it that actually really brings you here today? What did you want to achieve? What do you hope to gain from being here? Maybe you have been dealing with a lot of stress, overwhelm, anxiety, perhaps because of financial situation, because of the pandemic, or relationship stress, or just overwhelm at the state of the world today. Maybe you've been experiencing, more than usual negative thinking, or you're feeling like you're in a kind of a slump of bad habits, or maybe you've not been sleeping well at night and you would like some support around that. Or maybe it's something completely different for you, but just inquiring to the answer to that question. What is it that you most want to gain? And then when you're ready, just inviting you to take another deep, slow, full breath in. Maybe roll the shoulders up to the ears on the inhale. And then exhaling, opening the eyes and just taking a moment to connect again with the world around you. And so, whatever it is that does bring you here, I want you to know two things. The first thing I want you to know is that if you're struggling at the moment with anxiety, with negativity, with sleepless nights, with any of that, it's really important to know that you're not alone. With everything that's been going on in the world of late, it's incredibly challenging times, and a lot of these emotions are coming up for all of us. And so that's why it's more important than ever, I think, right now, to really take care of ourselves, take care of our well-being, and build the skills to have more resilience in these trying times. And that's what Cory and I are here to do. We're here to support you. We're here to travel by your side in this journey, and also connect you with a really caring community that's also going to travel alongside you in this journey. So, and the other thing that I really want you to know is no matter where you're starting from, you've never done meditation before, you've done a lot of meditation, or no matter what you're struggling with, over the next 7 days, we're going to share 7 skills in 7 days that will meet you where you're at. Right. So no matter where you're at right now, over the next 7 days, we'll be sharing skills and tools that will help you feel more empowered, more mentally strong, more calm and connected, no matter where you're starting from. So, and we'll be with you the entire way along the journey. So,
Yeah. Thanks, Melli. I noticed how dark my screen is now because my light went out.
oh,
You all might have noticed that as well. I tried to play it cool, but I'm gonna let's see if we could. Oh, there we go. I'm back in focus. Well, um, yeah. So, just notice how you feel after settling in with that meditation. Maybe there's a little bit more of a sense of arriving and being here um, with us right now. And who are we? The us that will be guiding you through these 7 days. We want to just take a moment to share a little bit about our story, what has brought us to this work, since we will be with you over the next week and hopefully beyond. Um, so for me, I wear a number of different hats. I grew up in New York. I started the Long Island Center for Mindfulness. I've taught mindfulness-based leadership at Columbia University and then positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. Um, and the big thing you could probably put on my business card these days is meditation teacher. And I think for a lot of people, they have different ideas of what it means to be a meditation teacher, often like very spiritual or must burn incense and light candles. And my journey was just different. I didn't get into this for any noble reasons. I was trying to impress a girl in college, had a hippie girlfriend. She was into meditation, and I wanted her to think I was cool. So I started meditating. She broke up with me a couple weeks later. But there was a different happy ending that came from that, which was that the pain of that breakup caused me to take the practice more seriously. It was the only thing giving me some relief at the time. And I noticed all these other benefits starting to happen. What started as a superficial undertaking quickly became more intrinsically motivated. I noticed my sleep improved radically. I went from waking up close to 30 times a night all throughout my adolescence, had very restless sleep. And then within 2 weeks of meditation, which I really did not know what I was doing, I just put my hands on my belly and I would think to myself, inhale, exhale. And it was just very basic, trying to focus on the present moment. But I went from waking up close to 30 times a night to only a couple times a night. And then I developed this thing that some people call paying attention. And with that, my listening got better. I felt more grounded. I was more at ease. And I just have very vivid memories of walking around campus at the time. I was 20 years old, and just feeling good, seemingly out of nowhere, in the sense that I couldn't point to anything external that was shifting, and yet something internally was changing. There was a sense of ease, groundedness, and even these spontaneous smiles that would arise on my face. There were no drugs involved. All I was doing was just, several times a week, 10 to 15 minutes, lying on my dormer bed, putting my hands on my belly. And so I kind of have a type A personality. And yeah, I just said, well, if you're doing this 15 minutes a day, it's going this well. What would happen if you did it 15 hours a day? And so when I graduated college, I went over to Southeast Asia and lived as a monk for a period of time and did a 6.5 month silent meditation retreat. And that's where I was meditating 15 hours a day. And it was really powerful. I severed myself from all the worldly pleasures, and the aim was to cultivate this quality of contentment that could exist independent of the external world. And I got it, or so I thought. Had this really deep peace, and left, came back to the world, and um, it only took about 3 days before, like, my dad said something at the dinner table that made me like go, oh, I hate being home. And just all these old patterns of conditioning came back. And it was just so evident that there's a certain quality of peace that you might be able to get when there are no distractions, not in the real world, in a monastery. And it's another thing to do this like where it really counts, when you're trying to make money, when you're trying to have a job, have an identity, relationships, kids. It gets more complex. And so the heart of my work has really been this integration of like the depth of these practices that have been around for thousands of years, that are there for a reason because they work. But then what does it look like to integrate it in the world in a really practical, relatable way that takes into consideration trauma and identity, and the latest science on well-being, which is just a big passion of mine. So yeah, that's some of what I bring to it, and a lifelong student and learner. It's great to be here with you.
Thanks, Cory. Cory is also, I have to say, one of the most compassionate and energetic people I've ever met in my life. He's actually 10 times the capacity of a normal human. But I really mean that. You really are one of the most compassionate, caring, like what you see on a screen is who you are always. And I really respect that about you.
Thank you, Melanie.
My journey into mindfulness began because I had a really tough childhood. And so what happened with me was, by the time I got to my teen years, was I suffering. I think back now and I'm like, so much compassion for past me. I undiagnosed, but I definitely had depression. I had an eating disorder, and I just really wasn't coping. Even at school, I just was not able to concentrate at school. I had all this unresolved stuff in me that just was weighing me down and holding me back. So I kind of had this dark night of the soul thing that went on when I was like 16. And I literally thought, I cannot bear this for the rest of my life. It's just too much. So I went looking for answers. And to cut a long story short, I ended up doing a meditation course when I was 17 years old with my best friend. Her name was Katie. And what happened during that time, and also at the time I was going to the school library and I was just reading as many books as I could on anything to do with the mind, happiness, how to ease suffering, anything I could find. I was hungry. And what ensued after this meditation course is that I had a series of breakthroughs and insights that were so seismic in nature. And they radically transformed my mind and therefore my entire life. Like, it was quite, I think seismic is actually a good word. It was such a huge turnaround that I was inspired and so empowered. And then I became even hungrier for more answers. I was like, wow, if this is what's possible, the amount of suffering, even just from one insight that I had, which was that I don't have to believe my thoughts. The relief that came from that one insight was just enormous and really, really exciting for me. So I became incredibly hungry. My ex-partner used to say obsessed. He used to throw around the word obsessed a lot, but it was really passion, because I just find mindfulness to be such an adventure. It's so full of possibility. So I ended up just wanting to spend my life sharing this with other people, which I do. So these days I'm a speaker, writer, and a mindfulness teacher. I guess that's what you'd put on my business card. And also the co-founder of mindfulness.com. And also, so the last 10 years of my life I've spent, or a little bit more than 10 years, I've been taking people through retreats and courses, online and offline, thousands of people. And 5 years ago, I also co-founded and hosted the Mindfulness Summit, which is currently the world's largest mindfulness conference. And that was a not-for-profit project that raised us over $750,000 for mindfulness-based charities around the world. And my big vision after everything that I've been through is to see an end to the world's global mental health crisis. I know what it is to suffer, and I would like to see an end. So my big vision is an end to the global mental health crisis, and a movement towards a world where every single person has the tools and the teachings, the understandings to be mentally strong, to thrive in their lives, to be happy, to contribute, and to live more meaningful lives. So, and then, what follows on naturally from that, right, is a more sustainable, harmonious, and kind world. Yeah.
Thanks, Melli. I'm sure all of you can feel Melli's heart and her sincerity when she speaks. But just to reinforce that feeling, it's one of the things. Melli and I, had a friendship over the pond, many ponds, her in Australia, me in New York, for a number of years. And when she invited me on to mindfulness.com, yeah, it was a no-brainer. And there's that sincerity and that motivation that you feel in her, like when she says to end the mental health crisis, the global mental health crisis, that is the well from which she draws water, and it's so sincere and pure, and it's why she could be smiling in one moment and then in the next moment there's just tears of love and sadness for the world, and it's beautiful. And so yeah, it's an honor and privilege to work alongside you, Melli, and to teach alongside you.
Thanks, Cory. I'll try and get through this one at least webinar without crying.
I
It's a
love the
challenge.
tears. Yeah. So, you have a bit of a background about us. Um, and that's important to the space that we're co-creating together. Uh, but I'd love for you to also tune into yourself and what it's like to be you right now at this point in your life. And you can even settle into it with us, like as you're here. It doesn't have to be a cognitive exercise, but even as you're listening to me speak, what is the felt sense of you in this moment? There might be a sense of, a heaviness, frustration. There might be a lightness or an ease. There could also be a neutrality or even a feeling of numbness. And, when we tune in that way, we can really feel the momentum of our life moving through us. A big part of where I think a lot of empowerment comes from in the work of mindfulness is that we're tuning into the present moment, like what's here right now. And it can feel so liberating for people, for all of us. I think that's what was so powerful to me. Like I don't need to be confined by my past. What has happened beforehand doesn't need to be what will happen in the future, and doesn't need to be the thing that drives me right now. And we hold that perspective deeply in this work, and the liberating power of this work in the 7 days that we're going to be here together, that you are not your past. And at the same time, could you also see how there might be someone could make the argument that who you are is nothing but your past, that everything that has preceded this moment has created the conglomeration of you, the felt sense of you, your past experiences, um, what the genetic disposition you were born into the world with, the social circles, everything that has preceded this moment is the very thing that is creating your experience of you. And so there's this interesting thing that we're holding when we drop into the present moment, which is like, whoa, we feel the bigness of our life, the bigness of everything that has come before us. And there's a sense of like even honoring it and bowing to it, that this is the ground that we stand on, that everything that has inspired the motivation to do the work that we're doing right now, to connect to our life, to even change our life, we have to thank our past for bringing us to this moment. And a lot of times that's because of suffering. And at the same time, where I think we start to connect to some really deep power is when we see, I can be here, I can feel all of that moving through me, I can feel the felt sense of me, and yet there can be stillness in that. There can be a sense of spaciousness. There can be a recognition that, yes, this is me, and it's also not me. that if I can observe what is going on, if I can feel into it with spaciousness, that maybe there's an opportunity to respond differently, even though every part of me wants to follow the same pattern, the same action, the same thought process. This becomes the fertile ground for resilience. This is where you might be familiar with that quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is where we start to see that space. The stimulus could be so many things. Somebody says something to you, a job layoff, a difficult conversation, an email, or just the whole momentum of your life. And a lot of times we're just reacting to it. It's just pushing us into the next moment. Have you experienced that before? Like we wake up in the morning, we go to bed, and it's just boom, 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 boom. And we're going through the motions on automatic pilot. There's this practice invites us to wake up to that, to feel the fullness of that, and everything that is there, and to stand in it and recognize, okay, this is what's coming up right now, but it doesn't need to be the thing that defines what will happen next. That's where we start to see that space between stimulus and response. And over these 7 days, what we're really going to dive into is how to see it a little bit more and how to wiggle our way into it. And then also, like, what are strategies to do once we're there? Now, there's huge power in not doing anything at all. To be able to sit in the momentum of your life and to feel it moving through you without reacting is fundamentally healing, nourishing, and restorative. And you can take that to the bank, even if you never did anything else in that space, but just felt life moving through you and gave it the chance to process and integrate. That would be massive. And there are also some tools that we can utilize in that space to direct our life a little bit more intentionally in the direction that we want to take it. And so this all really excites us, and it's in that space that we're going to be playing with. How do we actually cultivate some resilience? Um, how do we change our relationship to what is happening? How do we think differently? How do we respond differently? How do we act differently? And there's a lot of exciting science to show that, what has preceded this moment, and maybe the certain scripts that your brain is playing out right now doesn't need to be what will last forever. And a lot of this is recent research around neuroplasticity, which is a discovery within the last 15, 20-ish years, that the brain is actually malleable. So I brought this brain from Toys R Us. It's not a real brain. Um, and so what we're finding through a lot of this new research, MRIs, fMRIs, brain scans, where people go through a meditation curriculum and do these practices, and sometimes as little as 8 minutes per day. Uh, Areas of the brain responsible for stress,
Can
for
you hold your brain up
anxiety.
a little bit
Oh
more?
yeah, here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't really, I'm not pointing to the specific areas, but stress, anxiety, rumination, the default mode network, which is responsible for just constantly thinking about different things, past and future. These areas actually start to shrink, or reduce their activity. And then areas responsible for focus, for compassion, for empathy, for working memory, and for joy, these areas start to grow. And it looks exactly like this in real life. No, I bring this out because sometimes it can be helpful to have a visual on this.
Mm.
And why I like using that, and why it's exciting, and I think why it excites um, Melly and me is because it suggests the brain is like a muscle. And if the brain is sort of the director of how we're thinking in each moment, how we're responding in each moment, what we're finding is that there are a lot of tools, evidence-based tools and practices, that are continuing to be developed and have been around for thousands of years, that can change the wiring of your brain. And if it's helpful, you can even think of it as like a form of mental fitness. So like a basic meditation practice where we train our attention to be on the breath. The mind wanders, we bring it back. The mind wanders, we bring it back. The mind wanders. That motion of bringing it back is sort of like a bicep curl for the brain. And it can be a cute, clever way to think about what we're doing here, of like this fundamental training of directing our attention in a way, and thinking in new ways, and holding new beliefs that fundamentally change how we relate to our world. And for the record, if the idea of mental fitness is not compelling at this point, if it just feels like another form of doing, or like, oh, I have enough like strenuous fitness type things in my life, you could throw that out entirely and just view this as a practice of self-care. Maybe sitting in a sauna and allowing like the layers of tension to evaporate. There are a lot of different ways to frame what we're doing. But the main point and the key takeaway here is that our brains are malleable. We can change the scripts that influence how we relate to our life. And each day over the next 7 days, you're going to get a very simple practice that you can integrate into your day to think about, and then a meditation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That is kind of like going to the gym. This is, if mindfulness is your form of mental fitness, meditation is the gym. It's a place that you go to really intentionally cultivate those muscles of compassion, of empathy, of self-love, of presence, focus, and gratitude. So we're excited to walk you through all of that. And I think the last thing I'll say is, in the context of difficult things, one of the mind's typical responses can be negativity. And we can sometimes feel like, what's wrong with me for focusing so much on the negative, for not being able to be positive? And it's just a helpful reminder to know that this is the brain's disposition. We're wired to focus more on the negative. It's called the negativity bias. Why does this happen? Imagine two of our ancestors out hunting for food 150,000 years ago. They're out in the jungle, they see a cave, and one of them goes, oh my gosh, look at that cave. We should totally go in. And then the other one's like, are you crazy? Like, I'm terrified right now. We can't see anything. It's dark. There could be a bear in there. And the other one goes, whatever, I'm going in anyway. So they go in, and what happens? There's a bear, they get eaten, and then they die. Now, what happens to the other one? They survive, they go back to camp, they procreate, and then they pass down their shitty anxious genes to all of us. Excuse my language. So here we are, several 100,000 years later, and through the laws of natural selection, the programming we have is to assess our environment and find everything that could possibly go wrong. And when something could go wrong, we attach as much pain and rumination to it as possible so that we run away. And all the ancestors that had the genes we wanted, that were super loving, compassionate, and walked around naked and pet all the big bears and everything, they died very quickly. The ones that survived were the ones that could stand in a corner and go, that could go wrong, that could go wrong, that could go wrong, that could go wrong. I'm going to stay right here by myself and not talk to anyone, or just the people I trust. So if you're noticing that right now, that like there are a lot of good things in your life, but there are some bad things that the mind is just latching onto, know that this is normal. Rick Hansen says the brain is like Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive. But his research also shows that we can change this. And this is what we're going to start to recondition over the next 7 days.
Mm-hmm. I really related to both of your analogies about meditation being mental fitness and being like the sauna. Because it kind of actually, my felt experience is it kind of is both together. It is mental training but it also has a feeling tone a lot of the time of, the mental fitness is actually that kind of feeling of abiding in that sauna-like presence in the present moment.
Yeah.
So
it's like bicep curls in the sauna.
Kind of.
Maybe not.
Okay, just
we'll let go of all analogies now and transition.
So, I know from just experience that, you guys listening to this, when we think about mindfulness skills and meditation, you might be having all kinds of doubts about whether or not this is actually applicable for you in the circumstances that you find yourself in right now. And so I kind of wanted to speak to that a little bit. And the first thing I just want to say that I hear quite a bit is, maybe you're thinking, this sounds all really great, but I'm just not a meditation kind of a person. Like, you don't know how crazy it is in here. Like, if I had a penny for every time I heard this, I would be rich. And Cory's nodding because, every retreat that we do, every course that we do, every time we run anything online, it has to be one of the most common things we hear. It's like sometimes people will put up their hand really gingerly and kind of go, you don't understand. You don't understand what's going on in here. But I want to reassure you that you're okay. You have a normal, like if you have a really busy mind, if you have a really harsh inner critic, if you're experiencing a lot of negative thinking, if you're getting stuck in a lot of negativity and worry, as Cory said, this is the shitty genes that we inherited. Are we allowed to swear on this webinar?
It's too late and it's recorded. Sorry, everyone.
Sorry, Holly. These are the genes we got from our ancestors. If you're experiencing any of that stuff, you are a normal human being with a normal human mind. There is nothing wrong with you. Let me offer you an analogy here. I'm assuming that everybody watching this has a human body, and we all have human bodies. And so every single one of us looks completely unique and different from each other. So we can recognize each other on the street once we know each other. But underneath that, those differences we know are only skin deep, right? We all actually have, this human body has the basic same anatomy in every single one of us. And what that means is that if you hurt yourself, you break a bone, let's say, and you go to the doctor, that doctor is going to be able to heal and strengthen your body through the same modalities that he will do for anybody that comes through the door. So in the same way, the human mind is very, very similar to this. Like we all have a different personality. Every single one of us is absolutely unique, but those differences are only on the surface. The human mind, just like the human body, has a certain anatomy and structure. And so the same tools and techniques that strengthen and heal your mind, they work. They work for all of us. And is it a little bit, challenging to come face to face with all of that stuff that's going on inside of us? Of course it is, just like when you go to the gym the first time and you haven't been for 10 years, it's kind of tough going when you first go. So yeah, it takes a little bit of effort, but it's really, really well worth it. So I just want to assure you that you're good here. You're in the right place. It's not just you, it's all of us. The other thing that I want to speak to is, and this is something that I'm hearing around a lot, and that is this kind of feeling of, with everything that's going on in the world right now, how out of control things are, and the great losses that some of us and challenges that some of us are going through in our own lives. Like there's this kind of sentiment of like, how the hell are there any of these mental skills or training going to work? Like, why even bother? Everything is so overwhelming and so out of control. It's like, I feel completely overwhelmed and lost. So the first thing I want to say to that is, I hear you in those feelings of overwhelm. I feel you. It's really, really such a challenging time. Hey, like it's a very unique time. There's a lot going on. And I know that some of you who are here with us right now are going through very, very real challenges with a lot of difficulty and pain. And I want to offer you a story about a man named Viktor Frankl. Actually, Cory, was just one of your quotes that you just said was from Viktor. So if you've never heard of Viktor Frankl, he was a psychologist and a survivor of Auschwitz, and an author of an amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning, and many other books. But imagine this scenario. Viktor, here we are, it's in the middle of World War II. The entire world is at war, and it's seeming not going in a good direction. The Nazis are overtaking everything. And he ends up in not just a concentration camp, the concentration camp, Auschwitz, which is famous for how horrendous and the conditions were and how much suffering people had to endure there. He was separated from his wife. It was just, the most unimaginable suffering, and he was facing death pretty much daily. Whew. So what he noticed, I said I was going to get through this webinar without crying, and I'm like holding tight to it. What he noticed while he was there was that understandably, under those circumstances, many people fell apart mentally, like totally understandably. And he also noticed that there were some people who seemed to be able to face that kind of adversity still with a lot of meaning and purpose. These were the people who helped other people in the concentration camp. And he also noticed that these were the people that tended to survive this experience and come out still in a state of kind of mental strength and centeredness. And so he also, Victor, survived Auschwitz. He went on to share what he learned there with millions of people around the world and helped all of us understand how to live lives of meaning and purpose under the most extraordinary circumstances. And one of the insights that's so valuable that he gave the world was that, yes, we cannot control everything that happens to us. We absolutely can't. There's some things we can control, there's a lot we can't. But the one thing that we always can control is our attitude in any given circumstance and how we meet the challenges, how we respond to those challenges. And we do have skills that are trainable and teachable that anyone can learn to help you rise to the occasion of whatever it is that you're going through with the best of who you are. So I just want to reassure you on that. And yeah, that these are the times when we really need these skills. On a really practical level, I know that time is always a factor in these kinds of things. So I want to reassure you that although, of course, the more time and energy you put into anything, the more you get out of it, generally speaking. And over the next 7 days, in just 10 minutes a day, we will be teaching the seven skills in 7 days that will help you to cultivate, even if it's just a little bit more calm, confidence, and inner strength. So as Cory mentioned, yeah, you can choose different variations of time. So you might have a little bit more time, some of you, and some of you may only have that 10 minutes. So if 10 minutes is all you got, we can meet you there. And just the last thing that I want to speak to, and this is something Cory and I were talking about a couple of days ago, is that what we're hearing from a lot of people is a basic sentiment of, like, this is not a time to be sitting around meditating. This is a time to get off our butts and hit the streets and let our voices be heard and take action to change things. And so, first of all, I just want to say that Cory, on behalf of Cory and I, we both totally have deep respect for the care that sentiment comes from. And we stand by you and we stand with you. We believe that this is just as important, and we're hitting the streets with you. And I actually think that this is a time to double down on investing in our mental well-being and our mental strength, because in times like this, it's really easy to become so overwhelmed by stress and anxiety that we are not able to stay cool under pressure. We start to burn out, we become stressed and overwhelmed, and we're just not able to be the kind of agents of change that we really want to be. So in these times, sometimes what can happen when we become when we become overwhelmed by stress or anxiety, the amygdala, which is responsible for our fight or flight response, it can just kind of get stuck on and hijack the frontal cortex, which is the smart part of our brains. This is the part of our brain that helps us make rational decisions, think really clearly, stay cool under pressure, keep us out of emotional reactivity. And when it gets hijacked, we make rash decisions, we're emotionally reactive, and we do burn out. We kind of lose that ability to stay centered and strong. So that's why I recommend in times like this is the time when we want to double down on the practices that give us the well-being and the strength to have the stamina to be a force for good in the world for the long term. Because I think this is kind of a bit of a long haul situation here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, Melli. And I think, it's so key to see these practices as opportunities to meet the different emotions that arise, And through awareness interfacing with these emotions like anger, like fear, like pain, like confusion, for that interface to alchemize some sort of more intentional action. I think we can all agree that, well, there might be some exceptions to this, but in general, difficult emotions uh, consuming us on automatic pilot without awareness can sometimes be painful for us and for others. And it doesn't mean that like those emotions such as anger don't have a place. They do, and they can be extremely important, especially for social change. Um, and at the same time, there's a way to meet them in a way that gives them more space, allows us to not be completely consumed by them on automatic pilot and say, this is telling me something important. How do I want to use that intelligence to direct what I'm going to do next, how I'm going to take action in the world? So yeah, it's a really interesting balance, and so I love the emphasis on that. Yeah, and in the spirit of that, let's transition before we close into a short practice where we really practice rooting ourselves into this moment, holding everything that's here, and starting to nurture and take care of those seeds of resilience that are innate. So find a posture that feels comfortable and grounded for you. Now, this can look a lot of different ways. Even if you feel inspired to stand up, you can. But if you're sitting, it might be the feet grounded into the floor. The hands can be palms down, palms up, one hand in the other. And one of the cute ways to think about it is sitting upright but not uptight, because one occupational hazard of slouching while we meditate is, well, we could fall asleep. And as John Kabat-Zinn says, this practice is more about falling awake. So if you are comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to do so. So just be a short practice. And let's take a deep breath to settle in through the nose and slowly out through the mouth. On that exhale, inviting the jaw to soften, the shoulders, the belly, feeling how there can be a sense of relaxed stability so that we feel grounded in our body, in ourselves, but not in a way that is tense, constricted, tight, but a way that's easeful. Just sense into that for yourself. What does that relaxed, grounded, embodied awareness feel like in you? And as you feel yourself in your posture, connect to the support beneath you, the earth that is holding you. All of the people that have been on this land before you, the long lineage of ancestors and humans that have come before you, without whom you would not be here. The long lineage of people who have gotten through difficult things. There's not a single emotion that hasn't been felt before. And so, as you feel yourself supported by the earth beneath you, see if you can also feel yourself supported by those who have come before you, who have given you those seeds of resilience, who have wired into you that capacity to meet suffering and get through it. You do not have to do this alone. You can't do this alone. We depend on the world around us, the people around us, and we pull from everything that has come before. And so as you settle into yourself right now, your body grounded, this breath moving through you, this awareness that is able to feel and experience life as it's happening. Know and feel that you are held by something bigger. Notice the thoughts moving through your mind, whatever they may be, and see how you can watch those. That there's a part of you that can just be aware of all of that mental activity, whatever it may be. Notice the emotions that might be moving through you. And that part of you that is aware and knows those experiences, but is also bigger and more spacious. Feel the bigness of your being. Let yourself root into it. There's a part of you that is not the thoughts moving through your mind, not the emotions, not the pains, the sensations, the sounds, or the sensory experiences. Your awareness of fear is not fearful, and your awareness of your suffering is not suffering. This is the part of us that we're really going to be exploring and nurturing. So when you're ready, you can invite your eyes to open again. And in our last a couple minutes, Melli will share some final words. And yeah, well, Melli, would you like to take it away?
Thank you for that practice.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, I just want to thank you all for being here with us today and for taking a step towards cultivating more calm and contentment and inner strength in the midst of everything that's going on. And we'd love to continue this journey with you. We'd love you to join us over the next 7 days. As I said, as Cory said, We're going to be teaching you 7 skills in 7 days to help you build resilience, build inner peace, and really help you be an agent of change in the world. So all you have to do to join us for the challenge is just hit the download the app button just below, just down there.
Should be down there.
I think it's down there somewhere.
Yeah.
So just hit the download the app button, and then just go through the registration process. And I want you to know that there's no strings attached. This is not a download the app and then we're going to charge your credit card thing. It's no strings attached. It's completely free. It's completely free experience ongoing. So that's fine. And if you wanted to invite any friends or family, the share link is just above here as well. And so once you're inside the app, by the way, so once you download the app, you're inside the app, there'll be a screen there about the challenge. All you have to do is hit join. And then after that, each day for 7 days, you'll just get a video and a meditation from us guiding you through every step of the way. So
yeah. And a reminder that like Melli and I love depth and philosophy and going really into these practices and the juiciness of these practices. And we're also committed to simplicity and practical takeaways. So the daily teachings themselves really focus on like, what is something really simple that you can bring throughout your day that is just a mindset shift or a 10-second practice. And you're going to get 7 of those. And so if nothing else, after these 7 days, even if we never see you again, you have a toolkit that you can bring out in your life. And these are like our top things that we have found to be really useful in a day-to-day life. And then of course we hold the value of meditation significantly. And so there's a corresponding meditation. Again, that's like the gym. But you'll get that practice, and then you'll also get these short snippets. So we'd really love to continue this exploration with you and share some of this. We put a lot of time into it. The team has put a lot of time into it, all designed to just give you a lot of value during this period that we're all going through in life. And so again, it's just download the app below, and we get started tomorrow.
We get started tomorrow. Tomorrow is World Mental Health Day, so it's Friday here in Australia. So it's tomorrow for us, the 10th of October, Saturday, the 10th of October, the challenge starts. Is it? Yeah. It's a day, you're a day behind, right? It's the evening.
I think so.
Yeah.
Evening
before, so.
Or before. Yeah. Yeah.
It starts tomorrow or Saturday, the 10th of October, World Mental Health Day. It starts. So it's kind of a celebration of that. And I'm really confident, as Cory said, we've gone to so much effort to really kind of condense these skills and teachings right down to really concise teachings for you. So I'm really confident that when you get to the end of this challenge, you'll walk away feeling empowered, inspired, and armed with new tools to really rise to the occasion of these times with the best of who you are. So I hope that you can join us over the next week. Really looking forward to it. And but wherever your journey takes you from here, whether you're with us or wherever your particular journey takes you, I just want to really sincerely wish you strength and peace and ease in the days ahead. And may we all rise to the occasion of these times with as much love and resilience and compassion as we can possibly muster.
Well said, Melli. Thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure to spend this time with you, and we look forward to continuing tomorrow.